Thank you, Cammy, for, can everybody hear me? For inviting us. I immensely enjoyed the first sessions and the talks afterwards and the questions, and it's just been quite a bit of an eye-opener as well. Visualizing the world of anatomy, Anne van der Velde and I, together with Professor Francis van Glabik, who's an anatomist, organized a conference for the AIMS, which is the European Association of Medical Illustrators, in 2006. And we invited not only medical illustrators, but also artists interested in science and scientists who were artists. And it was a very interesting mix of people, and we wanted to continue this art and science connection by founding BIOMAP. And BIOMAP is Biological and Medical Art in Belgium. The aim of BIOMAP is specifically we organize twice a year now dissection drawing classes for artists and for medical illustrators, and for medical students as well. So the history of medical art is very important. We come from a very long line of illustrators, and the father of medical illustration, I would say, is Leonardo da Vinci, obviously, but then also Frank Netter. We've had beautiful illustrations in the Fabrica, Jan van Kalker and Vesalius are wonderful examples of that. So here you can see the orthopedic surgeon Francis van Glabik, who does the dissections on an arm and on a leg mainly. And one of the drawings from Geert Clarisse, who's a teacher in the art school in Ghent, he teaches cartoon and animation. And it's always very funny how you can capture a mood. The main thing, when I was studying medical illustration in the MAA in Great Britain, was that I wanted to give students and artists the opportunity to experience being in such close proximity with death, to experience an immersed experience, really, of observational drawing. As that was, for me, the most awarding part of being a medical illustrator, being able to go into dissection rooms, being able to go and be part and witness an autopsy or an operation. Those things are extremely important part of observational drawing, to get the whole package, to be really immersed in color, smell, and the feeling you get when you look at a dead body, the fear, the wonder, the awe of what the human body is, because it's a very complex thing. And if you have to draw it and depict it, it's very important that you understand the whole thing. And I'd just like to read you a little passage of an article I was asked to write for plastic surgeon Andrew Bird, and the paper was The History and Evolution of Functional and Aesthetic Upper Limb Replacement. And my part was on the hand, where art and science meet, because I think it's quite interesting in this context, talking about observational drawings. My sort of scientific brain, as a medical illustrator, always likes to analyze what the creative process is and what drawing is. And obviously drawing, anybody can draw, as we said before, because anybody who can put a line on a piece of paper can, in essence, make a drawing. But there's a lot more to it. And so I'll read what I thought was my view of the art of science and of drawing. It is said that thought is the purest form of creation. The exact science of how a thought spontaneously occurs in the mind is still one of life's great mysteries. The creative process involved in the physical manifestation of thought that is imbued with emotion is a complex undertaking. There is an added complexity when the communication is conducted in a non-verbal manner. The artist inevitably utilizes the perfect biological tool to create this work, which is the hand. The hand is perfectly equipped, mechanically and biologically, with its somatosensory feedback system to transform and translate a fleeting and intangible abstraction such as a thought into a work of art. The electrochemical impulses of firing neurons in the brain work their way through the nervous system and run through the flesh, muscle, and skin and sensory nerve endings to the hand. The hand now can materialize the thought, and the work of art is realized. When the act of creation is conceived with sincerity, integrity, and pure intention, the concepts are on their way to becoming works of the heart, works of dedication. So that was my view on drawing. We don't only see human anatomy, but we also have one day of animal anatomy. And here you can see one of the sessions. When I first saw this little calf and its 100 little placentas, and when it was explained to us that these placentas are in 3 amniotic sacs, and both placenta halves go across the 2 different amniotic sacs, I was like looking at an alien anatomy. And as a medical artist, I had seen quite a lot of human anatomical dissections, but this made me realize that I was looking and really looking and observing for the first time again. And the sense of awe and bewilderment at seeing such absolute perfection, I just think is very important. Not only do we use one day of animal anatomy and one day of human anatomy, but it's also, as comparative anatomy, it's also used to really make people look at the unusual and something they have never seen before. And we weren't the first ones to observe these little placenta patches, and it's such a different anatomical structure from the human, only one big placenta. But the way it was described as well was very beautiful, and this is in 1808. It is a perfect lifelike image of the internal form, so to say, funnel cavity with her piercings, as in mulberry, with her nipples. Everything pictures at the moment of natural secretion of the berries in the womb of the cow. So it's so beautiful, it's poetic, it's pure poetry. And compare that to the sort of day-to-day medical textbooks we have now, which are very dry and very technical. This sort of shows you that the person who drew these had the same sense of wonder that I had when I saw it for the first time. So this is my very first observational drawing of the plantar nerves of the foot when I started with Medical Artists Association. I was told later on when I worked for Gunther van Hagens in his exhibition Body Worlds that this would be very painful, as I don't know if you can see, but there's a nerve running across one of the tendons of the body of muscle, and that person would have been very sore if he walked on his foot like that. But in a sense, this was my first observational drawing from a foot that was in a pot, and obviously the nerve that had been cut had been floating around, and I drew it exactly as I'd seen it. So in a sense, medical illustration should be more than that, and this is why I understand that you have to know what you're drawing. Too much knowledge is not good, but not enough knowledge is not good either for a medical illustrator to be able to draw. But what I found after my education and with the MA is that I had confined myself so much to these laws of what a medical artist should, or medical illustration should be like, that I'd lost my freedom, and with that, my creativity. So when we started the BIOMAS dissection drawing classes, we very much advocated not to sit down and draw meticulously the drawings, but to enjoy the immersive experience of and make very quick sketches and look at the colors, because the colors are in real time, they're fresh frozen specimens. I'm sorry, I should have said at the beginning, there could be some sensitive images, so please don't, I should have warned you. One of the other things we do with BIOMAS is we organize conferences. As I said, the first conference was Confronting Mortality with Art and Science. We also had a conference in Zakynthos in 2014, which was called Vesalius Continuum. And this latest one was Anatomy and Beyond, which was in Riga on the 25th of August of this year. I'll show you very quickly the artists who were involved with this. This is Eleanor Crook, who's normally a sculptor, but she made some paintings for this particular exhibitions. And it is strange because my background is of a painter. I always use color and form to express myself, but now I'm mainly a sculptor. It's also interesting what was said before about the hand retaining some memory and the hand almost doing the drawing by itself. And as a sculptor, I found that my drawings have changed since, being 10 years heavily involved in sculpture. It is a very different experience of, for example, holding a brain in one's hand and feeling the shape, and your hand remembers that shape, and then you're, in fact, with that little bit of extra knowledge you have of the feeling of the shape and the heaviness and everything that goes with it, it's then easier to draw it through observation, but also through the knowledge you have of that shape in your hand. So Eleanor has gone the other way. She's mainly studied as a wax sculptor, and now she is making paintings and drawings and illustrations and collages, which she's intensely enjoying. Nina Sellers, one of the other artists who is exhibiting at also the Anatomy and Beyond, has an exhibition as well. She's a medical artist, and she's also a curator in Melbourne, Australia, in the medical museum, medical history museum, and she has used one of the specimens in the museum and has animated it. So she's using modern technology to actually do sign language, which is a specific signs that the hand does that everybody knows. She has sort of brought one of the old historical specimens to life. So that's to be seen at the exhibition. And Joe Davis, who is an art scientist from the States, from America, works at MIT. He has, with this work, which is called Baitul Mamur, the House of Angels, created... Baitul Mamur is actually Hallelujah, but in Arabic. And it is said that every time you say Baitul Mamur or Hallelujah, you summon an angel. And he has put this sentence into a DNA sequence, and the DNA sequence is repeated over and over and over again. So he has captured 1 billion trillion angels on the head of a needle, not a needle, kopspeld, as you call it, a pin. So, and that's in there. The pin with the trillion million angels is in there. So, but he depicts himself as a vitruvius man. He is also an amputee, and he's a very interesting guy, very poetic, his work, and art and science merging. So I did a facial reconstruction course with Richard Neef and Jacques Spee in Holland, in Maastricht. And after that, I just thought it would be very interesting to reconstruct the face of Andreas Vesalius, the father of anatomy, because he was the one who dissected the human body and brought anatomy to the public. And to a sense, this is what Francis van Glabbeek, the dissector of BIOMAB and the anatomist, is very much in favor of, to democratize anatomy and bring it back to the people. So here is a class during the BIOMAB sessions of putting the muscles of facial expression onto the skull. And again, this is both for medical students and for medical illustrators. Afterwards, you do remember all the facial muscles much, much better once you've actually put them on the skull. This is a way of remembering. We made, Richard Neve and myself made this big bronze sculpture of Vesalius, and it's depicting one of Vesalius's écorchés on the island of Zakynthos for the 500th anniversary, when we had our conference confronting Vesalius Continuum and the exhibition, touring exhibition, Fabrica Vitae, in 2014. We've been searching for the grave of Andreas Vesalius. We haven't found him yet, so I've based myself on one of the drawings in the Fabrica, in the frontispiece, to imagine what his skull would have looked like. We're getting very close to finding him, but this is also a project of BIOMAB and ARSIC, which is Art, Research, Science, International Collaborations. And we work together with archaeologists, with... We funded the project completely ourselves through crowdfunding. I made 12 of these heads were made into bronzes that were sold to then fund the larger sculpture that we placed on Zakynthos of the écorché. So this is the last slide of mine. It's a kidney which I made as a demo. I took actually a cast of a real kidney that we were explaining in the BIOMAB sessions, and I showed people how these casts are made, and then I turned it into a wax model. It's now in the nephrology and kidney transplantation department. It's lying on a bed, not ice, but little diamantes, and it just represents that organs are so much more worth than any diamonds can buy. You know, if it's your life you're talking about, you need a transplant. That is much more worth than any stone. That's it, and it refers to Antwerp, which is the place of diamonds. So, Anne, I'll let you.